reserve, but since I've got it on the phone.
We don't have to keep the council approval of the budget for 21.
But it's, well, it's not going to show up. If I put it in the chat, it's not showing comments. It's not showing.
Graham,
So we would have to request it to show in the law.
Graham, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're down for the invocation. You want somebody else to do it? Close your eyes.
Oh, please.
I can't hear you.
Yes, please.
Did he say please?
Yes, please.
Let me see if I
Got
can
you.
get Tammy in here.
Yeah, I'm telling y'all, let's be out here at 5:30, 4:31, you don't want me to. You know, I'm getting home, my church, I'm gonna pull one up.
I don't know what song.
It's not time.
Please, Lord, for you.
Just stay right there, Diane. I'll let you pray from there. How about
No, I'm coming tonight. Are you ready?
that? We
We
are.
had one
Oh,
on here.
wow.
Yeah, not here.
I don't have any other. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the budget meeting of Lawrence County Council. Today is dated May 19th, 2020. Time is 4 o'clock. The press have been properly notified of this meeting at this time. I would invite everyone for the invocation to be delivered by Councilwoman Diane Anderson, followed by the pledge of allegiance. Everyone, please stand.
I just want to fix Brown's stuff when we're done.
I'm sorry. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the opportunity we have together to discuss the concerns of Lawrence County. We ask that you be with us, lead us in our decision, and let us make them pleasing to the citizens as well as to you. We ask forgiveness of our many sins and mindful of your goodness. We ask a special protection around all of us during this coronavirus time. We ask that you strengthen us where we're weak and build us up where we're torn down, and give us strength and courage and faith that this all too shall pass. And when we leave this place, we ask that you be with each of us to our next destination. This we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brown, can you speak?
Can you hear me?
Can't hear. Brown, try again.
Test 1, 2, 3.
It's his volume.
On his end?
It's on his end.
Can you turn up your volume on your end?
I use this daily. I mean, I can't change my mic volume. I use it daily. It works just fine every other time.
It's coming out of here? Do you know?
The good news, Brown, is I can hear you, and I'll repeat what you said if we can't get it any louder, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, let's move forward. The first item on the agenda is the general fund FY21 status after the last budget meeting. This time I'll recognize County Administrator John Kane. Before I do, I will ask council members to please speak clearly and loudly into your microphone. Ms. Hanks asked me to ask you to go ahead and turn them on, okay? Thank you. Mr. Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council. After the last budget meeting, I see an error there. Error there. It says 428 budget meeting also. That was the last budget meeting number 2. We continued with the council's goal of not utilizing the LOST sales tax revenues in the general fund, which is an $850,000 decrease in the general fund revenues. On the expense side, I mentioned to you a withdrawal of the risk management position due to the fact that we are rebuilding the HR department, and we'll bring that back to us for consideration at the next fiscal year. or during the current fiscal year if that comes up. The other actions council took was to add a little more than $10,000 to the coroner's budget and $225,000 to the detention center and $111,000 to the sheriff's office. A net additional on the expense side of approximately $350,000. That increases your net deficit from $706,000 to roughly $1 million current budgeted deficit after that budget meeting. Any questions on this?
Are there any questions? Mr. Wood?
Oh, at our last meeting, this council approved the sheriff's department 5 new positions. In this paper right here, it says 6 positions cost $350,518. I know that'd be one less position than what he was asking for. He asked 6 new positions. I don't know where the money's gonna come from, to equip these deputies and send them to the academy and whatever vehicles they're gonna have. I know they're supposed to be tied to animal control. And you take the salaries from the animal control and give it to them. I know that would be deducted from. But I read in the paper this past weekend where 2 of these deputies are already gonna be assigned to the sheriff's office. So that makes you 2 less people in animal control. So what's happening here? I mean, where's this money gonna come from?
Thank you, Councilman. The action council took at the last budget meeting was not to add 5 new positions. The action was to only add 1 position to the sheriff's office. So in the sheriff's office, we only added 1 new position. Now, the transfer of the positions from the animal control from Public Works to the sheriff's office, that was actually 6 positions. Those are 6 existing positions. And those positions, along with that, council approved $8,000 for the bulletproof vests and the protection equipment that they're going to need. So there was an $8,000 increase one time for those protection pieces of equipment that those 6 employees will be getting. But in terms of the actual budget for the sheriff's department, you only added 1 new position as a majority of council during the last budget meeting.
That's not what I heard. We're gonna make 4 positions in animal control with deputy sheriffs.
So the transfer of the 6 positions from
And you can't do that with $8,000.
so the transfer of the 6 positions, I hear what you're saying. The transfer of the 6 positions actually is transferring the entire department of litter control and animal control from the sheriff's office, from the Public Works office over to the sheriff's office. Those 4 positions, those 6 positions currently are 4 positions that are animal control, litter control officers, and 2 positions, correct me if I'm wrong, Dale, 2 positions which manage the actual animal shelter itself. So now the sheriff's office will be maintaining the animal shelter. They will also be taking care of the litter and the animal control functions that were being done in the Public Works through those other 4 positions. Now, my understanding is that the intent is to take those 4 positions and have them classified as level 3. Somebody help me out.
You're sending them to the
Class
academy.
3.
You
Class
don't
3.
send these people to the academy and they're gonna come back and they're gonna carry weapons and they're gonna be able to arrest people and everything. What makes them any less a sheriff deputy than the ones that's already there? If they can't come back with where they're wearing a badge, if they're a sheriff's deputy, what's gonna make these people think that they don't get the same pay as a sheriff's deputy?
Now, these are minor, and I'm at the limit.
And what was written in the paper this week, 2 of them are gonna be assigned to the sheriff's office.
The functions that we are relinquishing from our control over to the sheriff's control are animal control and litter control, as well as the actual animal shelter itself. those operations are run by 6 employees. Those 6 employees and that budget, and I'll actually be bringing the finances to you at the next budget meeting, hopefully when we hold that next Tuesday, the actual finances of transferring that over. Now, my understanding, these are Class 3 certified deputies. It's different than the road deputy, which I believe is a Class 1 or Class 2. Class 1 deputy. So I really don't know the functions.
Just cause, Sheriff, I'm gonna know the truth about this. Just cause a deputy might be classified as a Class 3, he's no less than any other sheriff deputy. He got the arrest power, he wears a badge, he carries a gun, he reports to the sheriff's department. Lawrence County Council not gonna have anything else to do with animal control. When people come in here and have a problem with animal control, what we gonna do? We don't tell the sheriff how to run his department. That's what's gonna be the answer. And then what's people gonna say? And another thing, all these rumors floating around, I'm saying rumors. All this stuff floating around this week about this council giving sheriff's department $8,000 to go out and buy drugs with. That's uncalled for, uncalled for. I didn't vote for it, but it's uncalled for. We wasn't told the truth. I want to hear the truth. I want to know where this drug money went.
I could tell you what I know about the drug money. The drug money was a counterfeit marijuana case, I believe, maybe 10 plus years ago, where something went wrong, and it could have been something that happened during the actual processing.
But the judges didn't give all that money back.
My understanding is.
All that money's been spent by the sheriff's department.
No,
I
that.
know somebody will refund it to citizens that have been found not guilty.
What was the dollar amount we had to give back? No, the bulk of it was my recollection, it was about $55,000 in that account, and we had to give $53,000. I had no choice. It took everything I had to sign that paperwork, but we were required to give back $53,000 in seized funds.
So the taxpayers got to pay this back.
The money is actually set aside in a special revenue fund. When those resources are seized from the court system, from particularly in this case drugs, those resources are then able to be utilized to further combat the drug problem. So they were actually set up in the 113, is it the 113 account? We have a special revenue fund, 114, we have a special revenue fund. Those funds are put in that special revenue fund. We have no control over those funds. And
that's what you just said. You
right.
got no control over those funds. You got
correct.
no control over anything the sheriff does. So
that's correct.
That's what animal control is. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what animal control is. Now, we've opened a can of worms here.
Okay.
And I want to see it right up. I want to see it right out of where this drug money was spent. I want to see where it was spent, where it started out and where it was spent.
We can give you a history of that.
It's bad when newspapers from other cities and towns call and wants to know why this council is giving drug money to buy drugs with. And some other questions.
Any other questions or comments about where we are as we stand for FY21?
And we still hadn't answered my question, where you gonna get the money to train these people with? Train these 4 people that's supposed to be going to the academy. You're not gonna do it with $8,000. You're gonna be, I guess you're gonna be buying uniforms too. And is each one of them gonna have a pickup truck to drive? Where's the money coming from to train these people?
So I can tell you this, the current money that we were utilizing prior to this transfer for animal control and litter control and managing the shelter, operating the shelter, primarily came from the solid waste fee. It's always come from that prior to my arrival. And that portion of the solid waste fee, I've calculated out. Currently, the solid waste fee, as you know, is $65. About $10 of that, along with another revenue they have, will be what will cover the cost of running animal control and and litter control and the shelter as we currently have budgeted. So when I bring this to you at the next county council meeting, I'm going to recommend that we carve off that as a separate fund. I'm going to also recommend to council that we carve off that separate fee also from the solid waste fee, reduce the solid waste fee from $65 down to $55. And then the $10 will go over with this new fund. And that's not a change in anything that's currently under county council's budget that we have in the current fiscal year. No change will happen. There's no increase in that other than the $8,000 that was requested. That's a one-time request. So I'm not aware of any additional requests on that. All the other costs that might be borne by the sheriff's office would have to be covered either through that fund with those already budgeted line items that are in that budget on the 210 budget, or through the general fund, which is in the sheriff's budget through his existing budget, because y'all, I don't believe, increased his existing budget to cover any of those additional costs. So we'll be talking about this a little bit more in detail at the next budget meeting. Hopefully we'll have some more answers to your questions at that time.
Any other questions?
Did we discuss, exactly where we're gonna try to get funds from, and I guess, did we decide we were gonna go into contingency fund for our deficit? Have we ever decided that yet?
There's really not a decision that has been made by council other than certainly it has been inferred that we would have to go into the fund balance for the deficit. However, on the revenue side, for the past 2 years, at least, I know of 2, that we have had a significant excess in revenue over expenses, which will allow us to do that. So it will come out of the fund balance should there be a negative, and it appears that there will most likely be.
I realize that part, but I thought maybe we were just gonna keep on some current revenues, okay, we go ahead.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is non-consent items, Appendix C, Fund 156, Future Scholars. I'm not sure who's referencing that. Mr. Payne at this point.
I think Mr. Coleman is here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and other members of council. I'm here today representing Future Scholars, Lawrence County Future Scholars Corporation. We are a 501c3 corporation. We have our own bylaws and administrative plan now. We have 12 board members, and we meet quarterly to ensure the success of our mission. We thank you for y'all generous contributions from last year and the year before. And we look forward to a donation this year. And we're requesting $25,000, just the same as last year. This will be a investment in the future of Lawrence County and its economic well-being. As I've said in the past, if we want business and industry to invest in Lawrence County, we need to be willing to invest in ourselves. As we've reorganized this corporation, these funds will be audited every year. And we've got it set where it is set, it'll be sustaining. We do scholarships for Piedmont Tech and USC Union at Lawrence. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from members of council?
How many students that $25,000 in the school?
I think, let's see, how many Piedmont Tech the past year?
The answer is it depends.
It depends. I mean, this helps. What happens is the students have to apply for all other aid. And then when there's a gap there, then this scholarship funds helps those students pay their tuition at USC Union, at Lawrence, and at Piedmont Tech. I think on the thing it was 200 or so.
It says 200 in 2015.
Yeah, so it's about 150 to 200 a year.
But it's after all other student aid has been applied.
Yeah.
And at the technical colleges, Rusty is here, he can answer better than I. But the bottom line is, the state picks up the majority of the cost of tuition.
You have lottery money that comes into play, and then all these students have to apply,
They all have to
FAFSA.
apply for federal financial aid, which is the FAFSA, and
FAFSA.
they're also covered by South Carolina Aid, which is lottery tuition assistance, and a new program called SC Wins. So for the technical colleges, probably about 80% of the students are already covered. So this scholarship is picking up the gap between what the state and the feds will cover and what remains on their tuition.
And what we did this past year, to be fair, we put a limit on what scholarship goes to USC Union, trying to make it fair and where this will be sustainable. And we tied it to how so much a credit hour. So, and if we're willing to help these students, then they'll come back and help Lawrence County in the future. And we have it set up. There are 12 directors. They're rotating. We have several of them here today. But it's investment in the future of Lawrence County.
This is a non-consent item. That means that it is in the budget currently, correct, Mr. Caney?
It is currently in the column under requested. It is not currently in the budget, so that would be up to council whether or not you want to include it or not. This comes from the Philo Special Projects Fund, which is a special revenue fund. Those funds, as you may or may not know, just as a refresher, are generated solely from the Philo fee in lieu of tax that is paid by industry.
Okay. So this will require action on council. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to consider the Future Scholars Program. Is there a motion?
We give the future scholars the same that we did last year of.
There's a motion by Ms. Anderson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McDaniel. Now I'll open the floor for discussion. Mr. Patterson, any questions?
None.
Any council members?
Not my responsibility, simply like to take the deputy.
All right, any others? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Those in opposition with like sign. Motion passes 6 to 1 with Councilman Wood in opposition. Next on the
Thank
agenda
y'all. Thank you.
is Higher Ed Fund 342 non-consent items. This time I recognize both Piedmont Tech and USC Union.
Prior to that, I'd like to just remind council of the source of these funds. 1 mil of our property tax goes to higher education through the relationship we've had for a significant amount of time. That is then split between Piedmont Tech and USC. I believe the split is 90% to Piedmont Tech and 10% to USC.
Okay. And 1 mil generates approximately 180,000, is that correct?
The net impact, including all of the fees that all the revenue sources you see, in addition to a donation from County Council of $40,000 in Philo revenues, and all the other revenue sources amounts to somewhere around $200,000 annually.
Okay.
This is always done by ordinance. What's the difference this year?
It's part of the line item, but we will have to have an ordinance, is that correct? A continuing ordinance?
It's in the budget ordinance. So it is in the ordinance.
But
Part of the question.
what Mr. Wood is referencing is we have had a separate ordinance in years past, I do believe.
I think last year, or year before, we combined it with.
Oh, we did?
budget ordinance, yes.
Okay.
If you want a separate ordinance, I'll be glad to draw one for that. There's no discussion.
Would anyone like a separate ordinance for that, or you okay with the budget ordinance? Okay. All right, this time I recognize USC and Piedmont Tech. If you'd like to say anything?
Thank you, council. Thank you, Chairman Pitts. My name is Matthew Dean from University of South Carolina Union Lawrence location. I believe this is my 6th year, so it's great to see some familiar faces as well as some new faces. In the last 5 years that I've been at USC Union, we've more than tripled the number of degree-seeking students that we have that come into our campus in Lawrence. And then the dual enrollment students that are also called concurrent, depending on who you speak with, those numbers have consistently increased, and we serve approximately 300 students in the county. So those numbers have increased, and that's something that we continue to strive for. I think that all of us agree that education is extremely important. It's not the only thing, but it is something that is certainly very important, and it gives everyone an opportunity to be able to be successful. Of course, they have to do with it as they wish and as they can and have the ability to, but it does give them that ability. And I think that the people in the county and in the community, voters, I think that they need to have the opportunity to be able to grow and be successful and give back to their community. So I think that you guys have our request. Earlier, Mr. Kamey was mentioning that you guys should all have that, and ladies should have that available. Any questions? Would you like for?
Are there any questions regarding USC Union?
Are y'all talking about the upcoming fall semester and what the plans are for the students? This is what really is mind-boggling to me, is that this coronavirus has really caused a lot of things to happen, and it has a rippling effect on a lot of things. And I realize that as far as the educational institution, as well as the facilities and things, will possibly change. So the area where you all are is a small area.
Yes, ma'am. That's a great question. That's something that we've certainly discussed, and USC as a whole has discussed, and I think everyone in education in general, and how they're going to work that. And it's also a very fluid situation. So I can kind of give you a general idea of what we're talking about doing, but I know that that could change tomorrow morning, that just based off of decisions that governor makes or our president makes. As of now, I know that the major changes that we've had is that we will be doing classes through Thanksgiving, and then from there out, we will not be coming back for the rest of the semester until after Christmas. So they've kind of made some adjustments with that and made some things where it will be some online learning and that kind of things as well. But again, that could change again next week. I know we've gotten updates multiple times, and I'm sure that Piedmont Tech and others have gotten many changes. We want to be as safe as possible, just like everyone else does.
I realize that, and that's why I was thinking we're going to get a lot more media type learning instead of you being in a building. And I think it's just
we've been here since I think 1983, if my memory serves me correctly. And we definitely plan here to stay here in Lawrence County. But that's a great question in regards to how that's going to affect everyone. I'm sure Dr. Pitts has been mulling that over. Who knows how many times as well himself. So
I just foresee some of the satellite station closing for some reason in my mind. I really don't, with the institution have to give back funds to the students and a lot of interchange with monies and stuff, and I really don't feel like
we haven't had to give any money back to students in regards to that. That's all with institutions who have housing or meal plans.
See, I know that it's still a part of USC.
Right. Yes,
and so you're in their budget.
That's right.
And if they need to cut their budget, some of the satellite offices, I believe, will be closed.
Well, that means that it's even more important for county council to continue to support us.
Yeah, try to do that, I really feel like we need to continue to have the meal as an educational meal.
Rusty, anything from Piedmont Tech?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, your name, I apologize.
I'm Josh Black. I'm the
I knew that,
I'm the
John.
Vice President for Student Affairs at Piedmont Tech. I'm also a proud Lawrence County resident, so thank y'all for a few minutes to speak. We did serve close to 900 students in the last academic year on the credit side of the house, and a little over 800 on the non-credit side. Rusty can talk in detail about that stuff. That's corporate training, things for like ZF, CCL label, for Koku, the list goes on and on there. So we are continuing to invest in Lawrence County. We added 40 seats in our nursing program last year. We added an HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning program at the CAM for Clarence School District 56. Last year, we're also hosting their welding program at the CAM. So we continue to invest, and we just, on behalf of the college, we want to say thank you for your support over the years. And I think you do have our request in front of you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any for me.
Are there any questions regarding the Piedmont Tech request?
Y'all start making plans for.
Oh, yes, we sure have. We're up and running for the summer. Our enrollment's actually up for the summer term. We're online at what's called hybrid. So students are doing the lecture portions online, and we're going to be bringing students into labs in very small rooms, like for welding and things that can't be done online. We'll probably look very similar in the fall. We'll be doing that across all 7 or 8 locations we have. So we'll probably be primarily online and hybrid. In fact, we were talking to District 56 and all the other school districts earlier this afternoon about how dual enrollment is going to work. So that will likely be our approach to that. We'll limit face-to-face as much as we can because we just don't know where we're going to be related to this virus at this point in time.
Okay, thank you, Josh.
All right, thank you.
Council, just as a reminder, historically, we have had one mill of tax that is split 90-10, 90% going to Piedmont Tech and 10% going to USC Union. That was initiated long before I arrived on council. I'm just telling you what historically has happened. Are there any questions about what we have done in the past? From you, Graham?
I just was curious more on the breakdown of the numbers, the 900 and 800 that Mr. Black just referenced.
So his question is the breakdown of the numbers that Mr. Black referenced.
900 and the 800.
So for the credit side of the house, we serve close to I'm looking at you on the TV screen, this is strange. We serve close to 900 students in credit courses, and that runs the gamut between what we call general education transfer courses to HVAC, to nursing, we have about 30 programs you can do right here in Lawrence County. And on the non-credit side of the house, which Rusty can talk about in detail if you're interested, we serve close to, it was almost exactly 815 students in the last academic year. And those are things like Lean Six Sigma training, machine tool training out of the CAM. The list really goes on and on.
When they do the training at the CAM for those employees, does the company normally foot that bill or do the students foot the bill?
Let me repeat the question for everyone. When the training occurs at the CAM Center, does the company normally pay for that cost or does Piedmont Tech cover the cost? Is that correct, Mr. Patterson?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Black.
It varies. Rusty can speak to that in more detail, but it's primarily company payments. Sometimes the students do foot a part of the bill. Rusty, you want to add some detail?
Yeah, if you don't mind me. So I can help you answer the question. Yeah, majority of it is paid by the company. In some cases, we do reach out and look for other grants and other funding to help some of the companies offset that cost for training. There's also some different tax credits available to companies when they do the non-credit training, because they may be trying to get just a certification and not looking for the long-term degree programs that our normal students may take.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Patterson? Okay.
Good.
Is there a motion to authorize 1 mil of property tax to be split in the 90-10, 90% going to Piedmont Tech, 10% to USC Union at Lawrence for the FY21 year?
I'd like to make.
We've already voted on that, Mr. Chairman, in the ordinance. I don't have the number. I'm sure Sandy does. I don't think we need to take a vote on that right this second.
Let me get a clarification. You may be right. I'm not sure.
You have voted on the first reading of your ordinance.
Second.
Which includes for second reading. Not sure exactly where we are on that, but you have voted on it previously as part of your ordinance, or your budget ordinance.
So it is included in the proposed budget. Is that what you're telling me?
It's included in the proposed budget ordinance. I don't do the budget. You have to ask us to change that.
Mr. Kane?
If it's included in the ordinance, which would be a 1 mil 90-10 split, then we would incorporate the actual numbers into the budget. So that's hopefully explaining it. I pretty much is the same thing, the ordinance and the millage. Now, you can see the requests there. There are two requests, one from USC to double their allocation from 20,000 roughly. These are just rough estimates of what they received, 20,620 to a request of 45,300. That would be a doubling of their allocation from the county. And then the request from Piedmont Tech is from 186,000 roughly to $750,000. For the Piedmont Tech portion, obviously that cannot be absorbed in 1 mil. If there was a change in the allocation from the 90-10 split, you could accommodate the USC request, but that would mean a decrease in the allocation to Piedmont Tech. So if County Council was to choose to continue the 1 mil 90-10 split, then that revenue would roughly be 186,000 to Piedmont Tech and 21,000 to USC.
Okay, but for clarification purposes, do we need to take a vote, as Mr. Patterson suggested we don't, or do we? I'm confused. Is it included in the deficit of $1 million right now?
This is in a separate fund, so it is not included in the deficit, to answer that question. In terms of whether or not this requires a vote this evening, I have to defer back to the county attorney on that matter. If it is currently in the ordinance, and I don't recall the language in the ordinance, but I would probably guess that the current second reading of the ordinance does reflect what we did last year in terms of the 1 mil. And that 1 mil would be a 1 mil at a 90-10 split. And if that language is captured in the budget ordinance, then I assume that no action would necessarily be taken, need to be taken, unless you wanted to actually change that. Then we would need to know how council would want to change that, whether that would be a tax increase and or a change in the allocation of the 90-10 split.
Okay. I was asking for a motion, and Mr. Patterson saying he doesn't believe we have to vote on it. I feel like we're splitting hairs here.
Something need to be on. Can I make a motion, please?
Sure, anybody can make a motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we continue with the 1 millage of tax that we give to higher ed. And I would like us to continue to do a 90-10 split. I realize that each of you needs more, but this is not a time that I feel like we can give more. And so I feel like we need to keep it as it is so we can move forward. And if we have anything else, we can try to do better later.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Anderson and a second by Mr. Wood. Now I'll open the floor for discussion. Mr. Patterson, any discussion?
No, sir.
Anybody on council? Mr. McDaniel.
Matt and Josh, what is your
Is your
total?
microphone on, Mr. McDaniel?
Yeah, sorry, I'm far away. Whoever wants to go first. What is your total budget and how many students from the county are accepted currently? You know?
I have no idea on the total budget. Total number of students from the county itself would be probably just under 300 for us.
No.
Let me clarify that. A dual enrollment student is not a full-time student. It could be a student enrolled in Lawrence High School or Clinton High School, or even possibly Ware Schultz High School. That is currently enrolled in both the school district and in Tech or USC Union.
The number I quoted doesn't include those students.
Are you saying that
Separate.
USC Union has 300 students this past year in Lawrence County?
Yes, sir, when you.
Where did that attend at?
Let me try to explain it, only because I work in the school district. We have an English class taught at Clinton High School, on the campus of Clinton High School. The instructor is from USC Union. They are counting those students because they are dual enrolled at Clinton High and at USC Union. So that's why those numbers seem much higher. They're not all 300 sitting over on, what's that, Hillcrest Drive? North Harbor, or South Harbor, whatever Harbor.
It's north, 507 north.
Okay, so does that help you? I know that's a little confusing because the numbers do seem inflated. And it's hard to wrap your brain around 300 people going there, but that's where that's coming from. And the same thing is true at Piedmont Tech. And it's not just at Clinton High, it's at Lawrence High, and I think they have some at Ware Shoals High School too. Is that correct?
That is correct. Can I respond to this?
Absolutely.
Sure. So for the operational cost,
Could come to the microphone so it will transmit. Thank you. I apologize.
I don't have the total budget in front of me, Mr. McDaniel. I can speak to the operational cost for the request itself. The operational cost totaled $4,079,000 and some change in the last fiscal year. We already talked about the enrollment on the credit side of the house. We served 870 students last year and about 815 on the non-credit side. Only 90 of those were dual enrollments. The bulk of those were being served at one of the other campuses.
Thank you.
Okay.
This money is basically for maintaining the higher education center out there. It's not supposed to use for any kind of tuition or anything else. That's what it's for, maintaining the building. And also get money from the state to do the same thing. It's a state operated school.
In theory, however, it goes to the general fund of Piedmont Tech and goes to the general fund of USC Union. So unfortunately, but they control the spending of where it goes. But in theory, it should contribute to the running of the higher ed center in Lawrence County. Yes, sir, that's correct. We also recognize that it's not covering the cost of providing the services, both in others. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion that's been properly seconded. I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. And those in opposition with like sign. Any abstain? Mr. Patterson, did you vote? Are you there, Brown? Can you hear me?
Yes, I vote yes.
I think the internet's frozen.
Yeah, can you give us a voice vote?
Somebody text him and ask him if he's affirmative or negative. It passes either way, 6-1 or 7-0. Let's move forward while we try to get him back. Oh, he's up. We see him.
Is that a yes or a no?
It just came in, Brown. All right, 7-0. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I just appreciate what Piedmont Tech does for Lawrence County and does for the students. Piedmont Tech at one time ventured away from training people that work in the workplace. That's what Piedmont Tech and technical schools were established for. And they ventured away from that and went towards the college route, and now they've gone back towards training people like welding, air conditioning, hands-on work. And I appreciate Piedmont Tech taking that route because we need working people in this country just like we need college educated people. And I appreciate what Piedmont Tech does, and I appreciate the leadership you got at Piedmont Tech. And I know USC Union would love to have some more money, but like Diane said, this is a tough year.
We certainly appreciate all of our institutions and what they're doing to advance our workforce to hopefully attract new industry. I say thank you, Piedmont Tech, and thank you, USC Union, as well as our resident college, Presbyterian College. Moving along to General Fund 545, Veterans Affairs, Appendix C. I do not see Mr. Bolt.
So for his budget, once I looked at the numbers and put his budget basically where it was last fiscal year with some reductions. There are some line items there that do not agree with the requested column, starting with equipment maintenance. You can see $2,929 was requested and $2,500 is what we budgeted last year. On down, $1,300 for vehicle maintenance, $2,900 for telephone. I'm sorry, $1,300 for cell phone, it looks like. $2,500 for travels and meetings, and $6,241 for office supplies versus what I put in the budget, which is the column to the right, starting with $2,500.
That is virtually the same thing it was last year.
I did, correct.
Almost the same as it was last year.
My column is, that's correct.
Part-time person, is this the driver, you think the driver will pay?
We certainly have some unanswered questions as it relates to the Veterans Affairs Office. That's in conjunction with the local delegation. However, assuming that it is current in place as it currently exists, is there any consideration for any of the requests from Mr. Bolt?
No, I move that we go with the administrator has put down, not what he requested. I think there's only 2 or 3 changes.
Okay.
But my main thing is that, this coming year, last year, the governor appointed a person over the VA. And so I want to know really what's going on there, and what are we going to be receiving anything from the state? What? I don't know, what is the
I have to laugh.
there?
I have to laugh at that. Are we going to receive anything from the state? We know how much we're going to get from the state,
That's
probably.
so correct.
I'll second Ms. Anderson's motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, there's not a change, so it's existing in the budget, so I don't think this requires a vote. We'll go ahead and do it. There's a motion by Ms. Anderson to maintain the budget 545 and a second by Mr. Carroll. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Got you this time, Brown. 7-0.
On item number 8, those requests have been withdrawn, so there's no action needed by council.
Okay, moving along to number 9, General Fund 562, Chamber of Commerce. I believe I saw Amanda.
Hi, good afternoon. John, can I give you these to?
Sure.
As he's handing those out, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here this afternoon. Those are the Smart Start plan that we put together for our local businesses. That is not what we're requesting funding for, but it is one of the initiatives that we've taken on as a chamber. So it helps guide the businesses, and it's categorized by what their industry is and how they can better serve their customers. We did a survey in conjunction with Main Street Lawrence and Main Street Clinton to get information back from the consumers to see what would make them feel more comfortable as they begin to go back into these businesses. And from that, we got information, worked with other chambers in South Carolina, and put this together as document to hopefully help businesses.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. The request from the chamber this year is an increase of $12,500. At this point in time in the budget, Mr. Kaney has recommended it. So I'm assuming that is included in that $1 million deficit.
That is correct. One of the most profound effects of the COVID virus on the economy, it has been the inability of our small businesses to generate the revenues they need. There has been some support from the federal government in terms of what they're referring to as the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. However, that process has been quite cumbersome for a lot of small businesses. So I venture to say probably a lot of our small businesses were not able to take advantage of that. Those small businesses need the support of the local community in particular. And many of those small businesses, unfortunately, probably are not going to be able to survive this shutdown that we've had to incur, plus this new normal of reduced capacity and whatnot. So the work of the chamber and their work involved, especially with small businesses, has probably been never been more important in our history than it is right now. So I strongly encourage personally supporting the work of the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kaney. Since we have voted, this was included in the budget. I do not think that this requires a vote. I may be wrong on this. Mr. Kaney.
Unless there's any opposition to the request as it currently is in the budget, we're fine moving forward.
Is there any council member who would like to make an ulterior motion?
I agree with Mr. Kaney, and I'm hoping that you can help the small business owners. We hear so much about them being left out, and I am worried about it. And I'm hoping that this will be able to help.
Let me just ask this question. This is generated from the general taxes, is that correct?
In theory, it's generated from the portion of the ATAX funds that the county receives. By law, the ATAX funds must go to be distributed accordingly. But as with everything in the general fund, it all goes in the big pot. So it all goes into the big pot. Now, again, we are required by law to take a portion of the accommodations tax and allocate it to an entity such as the Chamber of Commerce.
I guess my question was, it's not coming out of the fee in lieu of tax, $400,000.
No, it is not.
I would like to offer this suggestion, Amanda, let me add, and the council. Council, would you, for a one-time expenditure, should Amanda be able to promote small businesses, and we can identify the small businesses. I'm talking about the mom and pop shops who have had a very, very difficult time. We already have the $47,500. Would council, the purpose of that fee in lieu of tax for economic development is, I believe, to support those small businesses as well. I'm just offering, would council consider a one-time expenditure of $50,000 coming out of that pot of money for this coming year for the sole specific purpose of the chamber to encourage our small businesses? I'm just throwing it out. I may be the only one.
I think it's a good option for us to look at something for the small business, but I would prefer us finish this budget first and then look at that. And really take it very serious.
Well, isn't that part of the budgeting process?
So with the FILO, yeah, with the FILO Special Projects Fund, that is something that we could look at during the fiscal year. If there were some programs that the chamber was able to put together and come to county council, we could look at that during the fiscal year. I believe it doesn't necessarily have to be a decision that we need to make at this point.
Okay.
You talking about fee in lieu of funds. The Chamber of Commerce does get fee in lieu of funds through the LCDC. How much is it a month? Y'all, they pay you for rent.
That's really reimbursement for the utilities, the phone bill. So it's really, they're not giving us any money. They are paying their share of overhead.
Ain't about $2,500 a month.
No, sir.
How much is it?
Well, they pay us $1,500 and then $1,500 for overhead. That includes all the phones.
Well, that's $3,000 right there.
Right, but it is all of
But
the
that money's
utilities.
coming from fee and lieu of funds. That's basically what I'm saying.
It's going to the
Fee of funds.
LCDC through fee and lieu of funds, but it's not coming to the chamber through that. I mean, the LCDC, well,
So the LCDC receives it through that, but it's given to
Back
us.
up, I remember exactly what happened. The reason we paying rent like that was to want some more money in the Chamber of Commerce, and I ain't got no problem with that. Let's just tell the truth about it. I mean, that's why we paying how much rent we paying on that building out there that we own master building. Well, the LCDC owns master building. But I got no problem with it. I mean, but to say that the chamber is not getting any FELO funds, that's not true. Because all the FELO, the county gives LCDC $360,000 right off the top of FELO funds. That's how they operate.
Okay, I guess we'll move forward, unless you want to say something. Go ahead.
In line with what you were saying about taking money out from the FELO special purpose for the chamber to do work with small businesses, I would like to see if you would, Amanda, put something together, some grant program that we could possibly use to help out some of these small businesses who may not be able to survive. I think we can use some of that money for that, not only to advertise, but actually help them.
Okay, well, we are working with the Main Street organizations on different grant opportunities, so I can certainly present something like that to you.
If you want to take this $12,000 out of this fund, Mr. King controls, I got no problem with it. You say it's gonna be a one-time thing, you said $50,000, but she's asked for $12,005, is that right?
This is an additional amount that council is now debating. This is an amount y'all are looking at in terms of some kind of grant or.
Buyer, you know, that, like they said, it might help a little bit, you know, when it's small business and so forth.
Mr. Chairman, could you clarify the motion or what's on the floor?
It's not really a motion, it was just an idea. And I think I heard from Mr. Wood and Ms. Anderson, and Mr. McDaniel, to give some direction to Amanda to go back to her folks, work with her folks, come back, present some kind of opportunity, grant, subsidy specifically for the purposes, as Mr. McDaniel said, to identify and help small businesses for one-time expenditure for whatever, whether it's through advertising or some other campaign. And she said that she would work with the Main Street folks.
We're actually, the document looks very similar to what I've already given you, that we're in the process of working on, that does multiple virtual workshops. It's an entire document of ways that we're planning to support. And so a grant could be training, yes, educational, helping them with social media. It's amazing the technology that they're not using these days, you know, how they're operating the way they always have. And so we're working on different educational opportunities for them. So I can certainly put all that together and bring that back to you.
So we won't have it in the form of a motion, but at least it has begun the conversations among council and with the chamber.
But 47 has already been.
The 47 is in the recommended
Because
budget.
he was discussing something.
Yeah, this was in addition to it. I apologize.
I would like to say something.
Go ahead.
I don't know, were you offended? Because I was offended for you. I felt like you were attacked a little bit, and I apologize. Because I feel not happy about what we just said, but thank you for the good work you do, and fully support that. I think there will be opportunities to help small business, and you will be the person to help us go that way. So, but I apologize for that whole previous one.
You ain't got to apologize to me.
I'm apologizing because I was offended.
Well, I'm sorry if you offended. I mean, it was said that the Chamber of Commerce didn't get any FELO funds.
They didn't say
get FELO
that.
funds.
They're not trying to say anything like that. They were just presenting their ask. There's discussion about how their money.
You ain't got to apologize to me.
Okay.
I think it is.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, and thank you all for your continued support.
Brown, I should have recognized you. I apologize. You got anything?
I'm good.
Okay, good.
I'm good.
Next is, General Fund 563, the museum request. This time I'll recognize Ms. Short.
Good evening, Chairman Pitts and the Lawrence County Council, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Seegers and I are here to talk about the museum. And we want to convey to you that Debbie Vaughn sends her regrets because she would normally be here, but she had an appointment out of state. The Lawrence County Museum, we did send in a request for $35,000 for this year and for the year 2020, 2021. So we want you to know that the museum is about the vision of preserving the history of Lawrence County. And that is all of Lawrence County and the surrounding areas. We were greatly gifted with $1 million. It was a major gift campaign in honor of Debbie Vaughn, but those funds are going toward the facility. And we are trying to reach the goal of moving toward the Witherspoon building. And we're in hopes that we can do that soon. Of course, COVID-19 has its place, but we're hoping that we can accomplish that goal and that mission at least by the beginning of the new year. And we also want to mention that it is so important because the Lawrence County Museum is a 501c3, and we serve Lawrence County. We have various programs that we've been offering, but due to the COVID-19 virus, this has caused a delay in delivery of services when it comes to our programs that we have. And likewise, we are run by a dedicated group of volunteers. Our offices, we have 15 board members, and certainly we go about the business of meeting monthly with the exception of the month of July. But we are very busy in the pursuit of just trying to open the museum. However, we are looking forward to the middle of June to receive the elevator. And the delivery of the elevator has been delayed because of the COVID virus that we're having, coronavirus. So we're hoping that it will be delivered at least by the middle of June. And we're excited about that and looking forward to it. So without further ado, we are looking at doing our very best to move forward to hopefully address rendering programs and services as soon as we get more from our CDC and also more information about reopening. Are there any questions that Mr. Seegers and I can try to answer for you? And we want to let you know, though, we seriously appreciate what you have done for us in the past because your funds has allowed us to operate. And we look forward, hopefully, that you can provide us with some kind of financial support to continue our efforts of preserving the history of Lawrence County, which also includes a lot of collaborations with our schools and hopefully our colleges and thereabout. So we look forward to whatever you can render for us this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Short. Are there any questions before I ask for a motion? At this time, I'll entertain a motion to authorize expenditure of up to a certain amount identified in your motion for the museum.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we give a donation to the museum of $25,000 like we did last year.
There's a motion by Ms. Anderson. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand.
Billy just pointed out, I think Brown had a comment.
I'm good.
The internet must have hung up. Hang on. Brown, I looked at you. I didn't see you. Go ahead.
I'm good. I would speak up if I had something to say. I'm good.
Okay. All right, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Short.
Thank you.
Before we leave that fund, I want to reference Gleams. I don't see any recommended for Gleams Head Start. Is there a reason for that, Mr. Kane?
If you look at note 3, no audit was submitted, nor was any budget request submitted. Now, it is at all possible that we don't have the correct contact. It has happened with some of these entities. I just noticed that too. But they did not submit a budget request, nor did they submit the audit that I required them to submit. But again, they may not have, we may not have the correct contact. Lisa sends out those budget packets to the individuals.
I have sent it to several individuals with Gleams, also with the information of the state guidelines that if we give you funds, then you have to tell us what the appropriation was used for. I got no response. We have really not submitted to them funds to the extent of what was budgeted in the past 2 years because we have not received the information. I'm sending it to 2 or 3 people that I'm finding on the website as contacts.
But you actually already given them 2,000 something.
We issue the first payment that council says can be appropriated. We do this quarterly with all of these entities. We issue the first payment with the guidelines that you need to submit to us, the required information according to the state, blah, blah, blah. And then you will receive the remainder. And for the past 2 years, I have not got a response back.
Did you check cash?
Actually, I think it's still outstanding.
Okay, well, I think, I'm gonna make a motion, that we add $10,000 to Gleams Head Start pending approval and submission of an audit for FY21. I submit to you that as a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Wood. Now open the floor for discussion.
All I have observed is that a lot of the, what's the best word to say, how best to say this?
I know what you're trying to say. I can't think of it.
A lot of
It's a bureaucracy.
that has started happening now, especially like this, child care over at, Thornwell. There's a lot of entities now that's taking up Head Start students. And that's what I don't have any problem with helping them because I know they serve a group of individuals that we need to serve and to help serve. But it's so many different entities opening up because they can get funds from the federal government also to provide services for these same students. So I don't really know exactly what is happening, but that's why I asked the question. I don't mind for us to give them something, but I would.
It is.
I think we need to.
I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this.
Okay.
Um,
That's what I couldn't say, but you go ahead.
I can't think of, I can't think of another way to say it. I think we all know what I'm trying to say.
Is it possible that we will have another budget session before we do anything? That would give them time to produce what you're talking about, so we don't have to put on it today.
Most likely, it won't happen.
We've requested that information repeatedly. We'll try again if that's the wish of council, but at some point, the people, if they need the money, you would think they would come forth and continue.
Well, we have a motion that's properly seconded, so we'll go ahead and call for the vote because it does have some caveats that when they're going to submit the audit and comply with state regs. So at this time, I'll call for the vote. All those signify by raising your right hand. Yes, ma'am. And those in opposition with like sign. Any abstain? All right, the motion passes 5-1 with Councilmember Carroll in opposition and Councilmember Patterson abstaining. Okay,
Is that correct, Brown? You look like you had your
No, I
hand up
voted
for
back.
no, or is that?
That was a no vote.
oh, correction. The motion passes 5-2 with council members Carroll and Patterson in opposition. Next is, Mr. Wood, go ahead.
What happened earlier, if I said anything to offend Amanda Munyon, I apologize. I've always supported Amanda Munyon. She's done a great job running the Chamber of Commerce, and I don't need anybody to apologize to me. I was just trying to set the record straight on feeling for it. But if I said anything to offend you, I honestly, if I say I'm wrong, I can say I'm wrong. If I was wrong, I'm wrong. I apologize.
Okay. Moving on to the road preservation program. This time I'll recognize Dale Satterfield.
Go
ahead. Well, thank you. We wanted to bring to you, as we have on a couple of occasions before, our need to begin to address the conditions of our county roads. We have put together for you what we believe our budget would be for these county roads. We know that currently now we probably have in excess of $40 million in needs to try to preserve our county roads. And as the years pass by, in 10 years, we'll probably be around $100 million in needs. Yesterday and today, and I understand through Thursday is a good example of why we're losing our roads because of all the rain that is coming down. And as we all know, water is the #1 enemy to our roads. We've brought to you this evening the budget. The equipment needs to try to get a crew into this project and begin to try to save and preserve our roads is just under $600,000 in equipment. Labor operations and maintenance is $271, and materials is $212,000 is what we would budget each year or for the emulsion and the stone aggregate to begin to try to tackle one of our most expensive pressing needs, and that is roads. And this does not begin to address bridges.
Okay. I heard the last part, Mr. Satterfield. So you're requesting an increase of road fee of $9.41 per vehicle, is that correct?
That is correct. And I'm going to lend to Mr. Kamey on those recommendations from the revenue standpoint.
All right, Mr. Kamey.
Any questions on that? Basically, you can see their $1 increase in fee produces $64,000 in revenue. And you can see the allocation of the money that's needed in order to start this program. That's the equipment of about $600,000, labor approximately $300,000, and about $200,000 in materials. The net amount is a little more than $600,000 at $64,000 per $1 fee increase. That would be equivalent to approximately a $9 to $10 increase in the road fee. Currently, the road fee is $15.
Okay, council.
How much of an increase in road fee?
This would be an increase, if you were to approve this as the funding source, this would be an increase from $15 to
approximately $25.
Approximately $25, that's correct.
It's 15 now per vehicle. What are surrounding counties?
It varies. We'd have to do an analysis, but it varies. Many counties have evaluated taking care of their roads through the same mechanism.
All right. Is there a motion by any council to increase the road fees?
I'll make a motion.
The motion by Mr. Carroll. Is there a second?
This is to buy the equipment that we talked about before, levy.
county start taking care of some of the roads?
Only the county roads.
County roads, yeah.
That's correct. This is the chip seal program, the tar and gravel program to seal the roads up that was explained to you. And as you know, we've already done one under the CTC program to show what this program is capable of. And this would pay for the equipment. Now the equipment under this model would be paid for over 5 years. So that is basically borrowing. We would borrow. Essentially, we'd have to borrow from the general fund to the general fund pot in order to fund that equipment at one-time purchase, and then we would continue the repayment through an internal lease purchase kind of arrangement. So that's $600,000, but you can see there that's over 5 years. So spread that purchase over 5 years.
If the equipment, is it just chip and seal or would it asphalt?
There is I believe, a limited amount of, go ahead, Dale. There's a limited amount of asphalt equipment.
Yes, sir. The equipment that we're purchasing, we would be able to lay asphalt as well. That's just a much more expensive solution right now. So we're trying to be as economical and efficient as we can to get this program going.
The problem also with asphalt is there's much more of an art to asphalt. Just like any of the trades, the work on asphalt requires a lot more art. I would not recommend that we start repaving our roads. You do sometimes have to go in. One of your biggest costs on maintaining our roads, and as you know, our CTC funds have not and do not pay for the cost of maintaining the county roads. One of the biggest costs is the deep depth patching. That's where you go in, you cut out the bad areas, and then you put in 4 to 6 inches of asphalt in that hole, kind of strengthens that area of the road up. I've done this for 15 years in Hart County, highly successful. The chip seal program, what it will do, it will allow you to seal that road up, and it requires much less art than asphalt. I'm not saying it's easy to do. It does require a learning curve in order to be able to learn how to properly put the tar and gravel down. But what it does is it seals all those cracks up. So what you will find, based on my 15 years of experience doing this very same program very successfully in my last job, is you will find that it seals your roads up so you significantly reduce the amount of money you spend on deep depth patching. And again, that deep depth patching is very expensive. That allows you to contract out your paving of the road. Even when you chip seal a road, you can then come back and pave that road at a later date. So some of your roads that may be in really bad condition, you can chip seal them now, and then you can see how that road performs over a period of time of a year or two. And then you can actually come back and you can asphalt on top of that. But based on my experience of 15 years of doing this, you'll find that it significantly reduces a lot of the cracking. A road is no different, like I've explained to you before, than a house. And when the asphalt shingles on a house start to crack, the water gets in, starts ruining your sheetrock, starts ruining your hardwood floors, etc. What happens with the road is it'll get in, the water will get in and it'll start to soften that dirt below, the mud starts to give, and then your asphalt starts to give even more, and that's when your pieces of your asphalt start to fly out. When you seal that up with tar and gravel, you essentially reduce the ability of that road to get in below the paved surface. And a lot of times you find that you don't actually have a problem with the dirt below. All of us have experience with clay, and you know when clay gets wet and you try to drive through it, it's a god-awful mess. But you let that clay dry out, and there's nothing harder or stronger than that compact clay. So that's in theory how this system would work.
Okay. All right, we got a second on the motion now. Now I'll open the floor for discussion.
Mr. Campbell or Dale, whoever, have we looked at outsourcing this instead of by person equipment ourselves?
Yes, sir, we have. By doing it in-house ourselves, On average, we're saving about 50% of the cost. The payback is about 2 years, if we can do this in-house. Contracted prices is just so much higher.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Patterson?
I'm good.
Ms. Anderson?
I think Mr. Lack, at $15, how long has that $15 been? For 10 years? How many years?
Yeah.
It has probably been.
It's in the packet.
10 years, okay.
We had it at, I wanna say it was at 8 at one time. And we put during my tenure here, and then it went to. we raised it to
2007.
15.
2007. Okay, so that's good. I agree. We hear a lot from the citizens about the road all the time. We want to do it, and I realize that we don't get enough money from the ones that sell that we just recently put on the books with the state. So I don't agree with it, but I know we don't have a whole lot of spending without this, so you'll see.
Any other comments?
The gas tax money that the county gets will never catch us up on the road. And we will be, I think it's our job on council to take care of the people in the county. And I'm thinking with this, you have to pay these roads, we're gonna be doing people in the county service.
How many new people we talking about? 5?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Does this do anything for roads that are in dire need of repair, like, I guess it's class 4?
Class 3, class 4, we would prioritize the roads in which we would attack this massive problem that we have. But we would start with probably the class 2s and 3s, but to prevent them from becoming a class 4 because they're so expensive to maintain, and then begin to attack the worst road.
I certainly recognize the issues with roads, both at the state level and county level. However, if my math is correct, that's a 60% increase in consternation over that. But we have a motion that's been properly seconded. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. And those in opposition with like sign. Motion passes 4-3 with council members Wood, Pitts, and Patterson in opposition. Next is the fee in lieu of tax special projects fund. This time I recognize Mr. Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council. In the fee in lieu of special projects fund, there is one thing I'd like to point out. We would like to request that the $25,000 that's in the current fiscal year budget for the capital sales tax legal, we haven't spent any of that money. I don't know that we'll actually be utilizing any of that money.
Yes, we will.
Before the end of this fiscal year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How much do you anticipate using?
25,000.
Before July 1?
Right, yes. We're down to crunch time to get this thing passed and move forward.
Okay.
But that's up to you.
I was going to recommend moving that money forward to July 1, but I stand corrected. Forget about that. The request that's before County Council, there's 2 requests. One is for the Joanna sidewalk, and I brought a letter from Representative Doug Gilliam that I forwarded to County Council. If you haven't received that, let me know, and I've got it here somewhere in my pile. I can get that letter to you. Anybody need a copy of that letter? I gave it to y'all on email. Okay, y'all have that. So that's one request, and Andy is here to address the other request, which is the gateways issues.
All right, Andy, hang on, let's take the sidewalk first. You should have received an email from Mr. Kaney. It was a letter from Representative Doug Gilliam asking us to consider. You went away on the screen. Magic. Requesting to authorize $17,000 for the Joanna sidewalk project. Remember that they had to move it across the street basically down there. So is there a motion to authorize $17,000 for the Joanna sidewalk, Main Street? So there's a motion by Mr. Patterson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McDaniel.
Would that include, Mr. Chairman, excuse me for interrupting, that would include the right of way that the county would have to give them across the county properties?
Sure. I thought we've already done that.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Inclusive.
You're talking about it would be constructed on the right of way?
Correct.
Yes. That's my understanding.
On our right of way.
Yes, sir.
Not DOT.
That's correct. Okay. This is a special project from the $400,000 plus that comes from the fee in lieu of tax for special projects.
And I think he said something about if we went the other way, it was gonna be more expensive.
I think it was almost impossible. That's why we had to give it the right of way, as well as I remember. Is that correct?
Yeah, they could not get them, the state would not give them permission. to
Yeah,
come in
the
the
state
state
would,
right
yeah.
away, so we had to give them a right of way across the property where our EMS substation is and our fire department.
I realize that about that, but I'm just talking about, when they were talking to the, what's the group with roads?
DOT?
Not DOT.
CTC?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think they were saying that if they did it, it would be triple the amount than what we would, if we did it. Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that?
Representative Gill expressed the same that you're saying to me. It was gonna be pretty well undoable if they had to go that route.
The DOT has a significant markup on projects that have to roll through the DOT. It's just part of their processes, and it really significantly drives up the cost of a lot of the things that we do through the DOT, if we do things through the DOT.
I know they said something about how much it would be more. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion to properly second. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. 7-0. Next, Andy Howard.
Good evening, council. I'm here tonight to request, I guess, the use of the fee in lieu of taxes, special project fund for entrance gateways, basically signage and some landscaping at exit 60 on Interstate 26. That's the, I guess you say the first exit coming into the county on exit 26. And then also on exit 19. And that's right there at ZF Transmission coming from Greenville. So that would be the first main interchange coming in. That signage would be welcome to Lawrence. The sign would be decided on by you guys. Not something that I'm going to decide on, but we'll have several designs made and presented. But I think obviously coming into a county and people that travel all the time, Mr. Patterson, those things make a big difference. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in creating an image for yourself, and I think that will create an image if you have a nice place to look at when you first come to the county. It's your doormat.
So Andy, you're only requesting $15,000 for the design and the permitting. This is not the actual.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, that was a mistake. I didn't understand the request. So Andy, reiterate the actual dollar amount, please.
The actual dollar amounts, I think we should keep the sign below 35,000, and that's based on signs that were done locally. For exit 19, you would see a total cost spent of about 46,000, and on exit 60 about 40,000. And the reason why the difference is the terrain's different and the type of landscaping we could do on those locations. Both of them, neither one of them are going to have irrigation. So with that being said, we're going to need to get something that's got hardy plants that can withstand it. But you also got to realize that this is something else that we're going to be maintaining. So that's more work and eventually maybe asking for more help. It's a lot of work to do those interchanges. So that's, for right now, we're asking for 40,000 for one interstate exchange and 46,000 for the other.
Okay, so the total request is $86,000. From what little I know about signs, that's not gonna go very far. What I would like to see us do is authorize Andy to, some money to design a sign and bring it back to us, and then we consider that expense. I agree with what you're saying that.
Those prices are not just pulled off the top of my head. I actually talked to a local sign guy, and I know you're saying that doesn't pull a lot, and it doesn't if you go through engineer and let them design some fancy sign. But if you look at the sign that's in your packet from Anderson, that total was I want to say that was $38,000. And I know the city of Clinton spent a whole lot of money, and the city of Lawrence spent a whole lot of money on their signs. That's not my fault. I know how to build things a lot cheaper.
Okay.
Not cheaper for a lot less money.
That's right.
I would like to see it be really,
Absolutely.
really.
I wanted to be
nice.
our front doors. So I mean, I wanted to be perfect. So.
Yeah. So, is there a motion to expend up to $100,000 for two signs to be paid for out of the fee and lieu special projects funding?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve, 100,000 for Interstate 385, is 19, Interstate 30.
60.
Yeah, 50%, 60, I mean, yeah, I see 60, I'm sorry, 50% for us to see.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second? Second. I'll second for discussion. Now, I'll open the floor up. I'll start, Ms. Patterson.
I have two questions. One is, will you bring us back multiple signs to pick from before you do?
That's my intention.
Okay. And two, how about the north side, or I guess it'd be the west side of 26, coming in from Spartanburg?
The reason why I put that Cleveland sign on there, Cleveland did something very unique. They did this is our sign type thing, and they put bigger signs coming into Cleveland on all different interchanges, whether there's exit there or not. And Spartanburg did the same thing with theirs, coming down 26, right when you get to the county line, there's no interchange there, but just on the other side of a DOT guardrail, there's a miniature sign of their big sign. So I think we could do the same thing on 26 coming the other way. No landscaping, just a nice sign that matches what you have.
So you are considering that, not just.
That's right, yes.
Any others? Mr. Wood, go ahead.
This council just passed, what, $600,000 for roads here in Lawrence County. And that $100,000 will go a long way on that expense there, and I just can't see spending that kind of money to put a sign up right now. You're gonna spend $100,000 on something, give it, put the work for, put on this $600-something thousand that they have to spend fixing a road. That's just the way I look at it.
Any others? We have a motion that's been properly seconded. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Those in opposition, like sign. Motion passes 6-1 with Councilmember Wood in opposition.
Thank you, Council.
Next. EMS Capital Fund, Kevin.
Thank you, Chairman, members of council.
Well, Kevin, before you get started, I'd just like to remind council that last year, the current fiscal year, we established a dedicated millage similar to the millage that we have for fire. That dedicated millage goes solely to EMS Capital. So any of these capital requests will be coming from that dedicated millage that we've set for EMS. Sorry, Kevin.
We have 3 items we want to purchase this year. You want to go over one by one?
Sure. Take it in total.
No total.
Okay. Let me just correct something here. The $275,000 That's actually already been approved by county council. So the items that you'll be looking at are the $49,000 for the power loader, the, whatever there's the computer portion, the 24,500, and the mobile CAD. Are all those items still accurate?
They are. Number 2 and 3 go together.
So the $49,000 is correct?
Yes.
And the 2 items of 24 and 30,000 are also correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, go ahead, Kevin. Joe, you up on listen to?
Sir? He's gonna come up for the mobile CAD portion.
Okay.
All right, so the 48,697.24 is to retrofit 2 ambulance systems, the power load system. The power load system is designed to basically put the patient in the truck without having to manually lift it. These units are really helping out, reducing injuries and reducing workers' comp claims. We would like to put 2 in this year, and then going forward on new builds, we'd like to put them in the trucks as we go forward. So that's all I have for the power load systems.
Can you explain what the power load is real briefly?
It's a unit made by Stryker that when it hooks up to, whenever you put your stretcher up to the ambulance, you basically just push a button, it lifts the wheels off the ground, and then the EMT's just pushing the truck, no more lifting of the stretcher.
And the problem we're addressing, can you just explain why this is now needed?
To reduce workers' comp claims and back injuries.
Okay. Go to the next one, replacement computer.
That goes hand in hand with the mobile CAD system that we're wanting.
All right, let's talk about both of them together.
Mr. Chairman, council members, what they're trying to do is replace all the computers that are presently in the vehicles now. There'll be a total of 15 vehicles that these computers will go in. And it provides them technology. We're able to send data from our CAD to their emergency reporting system, and they're able to download information from the CAD into that workstation. Mobile CAD will give them basically everything that we have and see in the 911 center, and it's steadily dumping data wirelessly through the system. Gives them capability to see the map. They'll actually be able to see the calls for service that they're on, and then they'll be able to download the information into their management report. It's taken EMS a huge step in technology and providing efficiency out in the field. This is new for us. I think we've sort of planned this in steps. We upgraded our CAD a couple of years ago in order to do that. We're already exporting some data to agencies. So we know that the technology is working out there. What we put in place is working. And this would be a huge step for us in order to do that. We've gone out and we looked at other counties that are doing this using the same CAD system that we're utilizing, and as well as some of the same computer and software. And so the hardware is certainly a major part of it. The software, the mobile CAD is basically software to load and to interface. Everything will be done remotely, wirelessly, if you will.
And the GPS option
Yeah,
is way better than what we're using right now. Right now, we're currently just using GPS that's bought from Walmart in all our units.
We'll be able to put a GPS track there and really help them navigate around the county. So.
Okay, so let me try to explain what I think we have. And then we'll call for the vote or motion, should so choose. We have 2 mills of tax with the anticipation of $375,000 to be generated from those 2 mills of tax for the specific purposes of capital. You go down to the bottom, that $275,000, address that, John, that Fund 128.
So what I've been able to do now that we've generated significant healthy fund balances, which is why I would caution you on drawing down your fund balance to where it was when I got here 4 years ago. Now that we have that ability, we can actually borrow from ourselves. And we've done this on several different occasions. One is, if you recall, through the solid waste fund, we've been able to self-fund the million plus, million and a half investment that we're going to need in order to make the changes with solid waste through the monies we have in general fund, and then pay ourselves back. So essentially, we won't be paying banks, we'll be paying the taxpayers back. Similarly, with this one, the EMS is a separate entity now, and that fund has its operating fund, Fund 128. So this year, I don't know the exact number. This is the first year this fund is actually going to be in place, is 2 mills. Whatever expenditures that we take out this year of the revenues we generate, we'll actually have to borrow from Fund 128. So the repay of Fund 128 of the $275,000 is in anticipation of us running a deficit in this fund, which is actually now, it has a number. This is Fund 601. So Fund 601, essentially, we'll be borrowing from the EMS Fund 128, which is the EMS Operating and Maintenance Fund, potentially up to $500,000, and we will potentially be able to pay more than half of that back in the next fiscal year.
But that payment of $275,000 is the first of 2 payments. The second payment will be the FY 22 year.
Potentially,
back
yes.
to Fund 128.
Potentially, yes.
Which will pay back that $550,000 up top.
Correct.
Follow that?
That's correct. So eventually, we're borrowing from ourselves. EMS is borrowing from itself. So the capital needed today will be borrowed from the operation fund, and then it will pay itself back to the operation fund. Just so you, just to refresh County Council, you have 7.3 mills, I believe, on EMS operation and maintenance. That's been in place for a long time. And that is now a standalone fund that has taken place during the past 4 years. And just last year, we established this new 2 mil EMS capital fund. Again, all of those millages are utilized with other revenue sources to self-fund EMS.
Okay. All right. It took me a while to follow that, but I want to explain that as best I could. So is there a motion to pay, well, let's see, does anybody want to take it separately? Or can we take it holistically, all 3 items here?
They're borrowing money in-house to do this, right? So,
Correct. That's correct.
And it's generating it, it's the money, the revenue is generated from the 2 mills of capital tax designated for EMS.
I think we'll start getting in place.
2 years. Okay. So, let me add it up right quick. Is there a motion to expend $73,597.24? If my quick math was correct.
I think it's 103. If we take the 275 from the 378, it'd be 103.5.
Oh, my math's wrong. Oh, I didn't see 3, you're right. So what's the total?
I believe 103.
597.24.
103,500. $103,500. That's the $49,000, the 24,500, and the 30,000.
He's rounded up to 48,600.
I got you. Okay. You say 103?
103,500 is the.
Okay. Is there a motion to authorize expenditure of $103,500 to retrofit 2 ambulances with a power loader, a replacement computer, and a mobile CAD on all vehicles in the EMS? Is there a motion? 15 vehicles. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Carroll. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Ms. Anderson first. Now open the floor for discussion. Anybody?
I'm curious, how many reportable injuries have we had related to?
I don't know the number right offhand, but it's we have had back injuries due to the bridge directors. It seems to be an issue that's getting progressively worse as people end up gaining more and more weight, and a lot of the patients that they're having to deal with. Mr. Carroll could probably also elaborate on that, running an EMS system for Spartanburg County. The old stretcher system is getting much harder and harder to be able to be utilized for some of these patients.
population's changing and your workforce is changing. We're creating more.
And computer systems, the mobile CAD and replacement computers, when we buy new boxes or new completely ambulances, what we do, they will, is they
interchangeable? Any others? I do have one question on the software. Is there an annual maintenance fee on that?
There is, it's a small amount. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but probably 1,500.
Something we could absorb in the current budget.
2,000 annual, and it would be in next year's capital request or budget. It would, the first year is free.
Any others? Hearing none, we have a motion that is properly seconded. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. And those in opposition with a like sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Kevin. I believe that is all we have to discuss, but before we adjourn, I would like to say publicly to all of our employees, but especially John and Billy and Joey and Dale and anyone else that has really, Amy sitting over there, really helped with the cautious opening. Yesterday, I went to Hillcrest. Billy walked me around, and I would like to thank the sheriff's office. They had a bunch of folks out there checking temperatures. He would not let me in. I didn't have a place to go, and of course, he didn't know who I was. It didn't matter. So I called Billy. I said, "Let me in the back door." He did his job. I appreciate it. It is well organized, well thought out, well planned. I really believe Lawrence County can be the model for the other 45 counties on how to open cautiously. I went to both libraries. I saw that in action. I can't say enough about our employees, about what they have done in preparation for the signage at Hillcrest. Looks absolutely phenomenal. As a matter of fact, I need to know where you got signs because I need some for graduation. It clearly tells you to stay 6 feet apart. They've got tape in the floor. They've got cones in the floor. Somebody came up with the great idea of each office having a placard. So I would go, or a citizen could go to an office. When they came back, the sheriff's deputy was sitting there disinfecting and gave that placard. That made sure that there were only 2 people in each office. I can't say enough good things about what our folks have done for this opening. So I did send a letter to all employees today, thanking them for that. If you get a chance, I encourage you to go by and see it in action. It's quite a well-oiled machine. I think Billy said it best. I believe you said we over-planned and over-prepared, which was very, very, very good. Does anybody want to say anything about that, John?
I just wanted to wrap up on the budget once you finish this.
Oh, I thought we were done
Thank
with
you.
the budget.
No, I just wanted to give a little peek on what's remaining.
Well, let's finish this discussion.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure.
Anybody? Billy, Joey, y'all want to say anything?
I will say that Ms. Anderson asked a question at the last council meeting about the testing in the
Talk
county.
to the microphone, please. Tammy will get me. You know.
Ms. Anderson asked at the last council meeting about some testing that will be taking place in the county. Prisma Health will be set up at EB Morris on Saturday from 10 to 2, doing drive-through testing. You do not need an appointment. You just drive through, they'll test you, and we hope to have a big crowd out there.
Well, we don't want a big crowd, Joey. Anybody else? Billy, you want to say anything about how it's gone in Hillcrest?
I just want to say, appreciate the accolades and everything. We did try, and I think we hit on a good thing, and we were over prepared, and it went great. Today seems to have gone smooth also. We still have a lot of traffic being directed through the drive-through. That's helping out too. So hats off to everybody at Hillcrest that made this, and the libraries also. Ann done a fantastic job with the Lawrence and Clinton Library. And we've got her some extra help over there, cleaning and everything, and she's very well appreciative of it, and her staff was prepared as well. So everybody done a good job.
And please just pass it on. I will tell you that I made a mistake in the letter I sent, that the employee, I put the wrong date. I had June 28th as the Employee Appreciation Day. It's June the 26th, but that's okay. The purpose of it was to thank the employees. But while we're talking about that, it's not too early to start planning. I invite each one of you to help us, help Andy. I really appreciate Andy's leadership on that. I told him we needed a bigger tent this year. He asked for some money to build a building, so if y'all want to give him some money. A shed, I should say. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a great idea, actually. So that's on June the 26th, because the 4th falls on Saturday. That's on the Friday before. If you want to volunteer with anybody, see Andy. He's kind of takes charge on that for us. Now, John, back to the budget.
I'm sorry. No, I apologize for interrupting. We greatly appreciate those accolades. This period of time during COVID has just personally astounded me with the public servants that work for the taxpayers and work for county council, on how dedicated all of those folks have been. On the budget, the next budget meeting is going to be proposed for 4 o'clock on the next Tuesday, the 26th, before the county council meeting. During that meeting, I'm hoping that we can address the personnel requests. We are down from $2 million in personnel requests to about $250,000 in personnel requests. So on the 26th, hopefully we can wrap up the personnel requests, and the only remaining item will be the capital, which is currently a $6 million capital that we always end up with significantly more requests. I think there's about $3 million again this year in requests, and we'll need to narrow that down to about $1 million in spending if we want to keep the 6 mills the same. I would hope that council would reserve the 2nd of June. It's hard to believe it's June already, but the 2nd of June, that Tuesday, if you would reserve that evening, we can wrap up capital. Then at that point, we would be complete with the budget. That would keep us on schedule. I believe we're still on schedule for 3rd and final on the 9th of June for 3rd and final and public hearing.
If you have all the numbers ready, if not, the alternate date is the 23rd.
Okay.
But we're gonna need to know 2 weeks in advance.
Okay.
Because we gotta publish, and we gotta publish numbers. So, take that June 2nd and back it up a week, as far as what I need in order to get the public hearing notice and all of the bells and whistles done, so you can have a public hearing and 3rd reading effectively with everything you need in. The 9th is a possibility, the backup was the 23rd.
Thank you for that. So if we were to give you numbers on the 27th after the meeting on the 26th, then we could probably meet that deadline. That would be 13 days before the 9th. Wouldn't work, okay, because of the 15 days.
Unfortunately, we have a weekly publication, so their deadlines are on Friday preceding the week of which they have to be published. So factor that in.
So that kind of puts a little bit of a crimp in the schedule. We don't have a tax increase. We do have a proposed fee increase. Would we need a supermajority?
I don't think so on a fee increase, but I'll look at that. My suggestion would be, rather than try to turn the fire hose wide open, is to plan the 23rd as public hearing.
It's looking like that, yeah.
I think that gives plenty of time. Other things done and get the publication in correctly, so we don't have I'm only one person.
I agree with that approach. So we would look at the public hearing and 3rd, which would give us a little more time if needed after the 2nd of June when we discuss capital to maybe button up a few things. And then on the 23rd of June, hopefully we would get the needed 4 votes unless there's a supermajority, which I believe is 5 votes. And we'll have guidance on whether we need 4 or 5 votes in order to make that final ordinance pass on the 23rd. Hopefully that would pass. And then we're done this fiscal year. Thank you, council.
Okay. Any other comments from any council member? All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. McDaniel, second. Second by Mr. Carroll. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. 7-0. We're adjourned.